Hey there. I'm going to start today from the beginning. John Maxwell, when he always talks about leadership, John Maxwell has a phrase that it's the best phrase. Everything worthwhile is uphill. That's it. Everything worthwhile is uphill. And we do understand the value of things precisely on how hard it is to achieve those things, right? So the the reflection of today that I want to focus on is on decision making for the matters of personal decisions. There's plenty of resources for decision making and how do you do decision making. There are techniques, there are systems on how to do decision making, but usually we are never taught that, or we don't even pursue. We don't even try to find them because we don't know that there exists, right? So but when decision making is not necessarily tied to a process or a system in a organization, usually when it's for your personal decisions, the biggest hindrance for decision making is fear or lack of courage. And that's the battle. It's not falling on the games that your mind tricks you into because of fear. So, for example, a lot of the times we go through life we want to do something, we want to try to achieve something, and then we start doing it, and then we start seeing that the path gets rocky, and then you start getting all these uh, branches, and you get into the bushes, in the rose bushes, and you get cut with all the roses, the wild roses, and you're like, but you only get to see that if you get there. And the upper you go through the mountain, the harder it gets. That's why it's not easy. That's why not many people do it. That's why we understand the intrinsic value of things when things are actually difficult to achieve. We humans understand very clearly that when you really truly want something, you're going to have to go through a lot of suffering to get that. Sure, a lot of the time people get lucky and get things just magically bestowed upon them, but that usually is not the case, right? So, for example, most people always, when we're doing something, whether trying to create our own business, wanting to um, go to the gym or start a new diet or go to a new place or a country or change jobs, we always start the process and then we realize that it's very hard. Like I said, because everything worthwhile is uphill. And then we use a variation of a phrase. It's a very popular phrase. And it's it goes, sometimes you have to choose between losing someone else, something else, or losing yourself. That's why Eminem says you better lose yourself in the music. I got you, buddy. But anyways, joke aside, if you think about it, that phrase that we tend to use when we're scared, when we're fearful, and we that clouds our decision making for our own personal things, right? And that phrase, if you think about it, or any variation of that phrase, or well, you either do that or lose myself, or I stop being me, or right. We use these variations of that phrase. So the problem with that phrase, when you analyze it, it has two logical fallacies, right? It has the logical fallacy of the false dichotomy, and it has the logical fallacy of appeal to emotion. And the problem with that is that it uses fear of loss between two options only, amongst the plethora of options out there, of the things that you could have done, right? But you only reduce it to the bare minimum of two. And that is used to influence decision making. So you have two logical fallacies on such short statement, feeding the way that you decide. And I really like how on yes or no, Spencer Johnson, I like how he puts it here. When you're under a lot of uncertainty, right, and you're going through all these chaos and you're going through all this suffering that you're going through to achieve that which you're trying to pursue, and you don't get to that point of that crossroad that you're suffering too much and you don't know what to do, and then you say things like these, well, sometimes you either have to choose between something or lose yourself. So I'm not gonna lose myself, so I therefore choose me. When you say things like that, a statement that has two logical fallacies, you literally skewed completely your decision making. And now, Spencer Johnson always says, when you're faced like that, don't say things like that, because when you look ahead to make a better decision, do you know what you need to do first? To make a better decision, I first stop proceeding with a poor decision. It's amazing. So decision making definitely is very key. And you go and think, well, no, you know what? This actually, I've used that phrase, and it makes total sense, because I prefer me. I'm going to choose me. I don't want to do this stuff anymore. Think about it this way. Imagine a person that goes to the one that we've all been there, right? Everybody wants to be fit, go to the gym, right? Every January 1st, it's a worldwide phenomenon of everybody joining the gym, and then you don't go. So imagine somebody, I'm going to be the best version of myself and go to the gym. And I go to the gym, and 3 years, almost 3 years, right? And then you're like, oh man, like I'm tired of this toiling, of this suffering and struggle, and why am I doing this? And then you quit the gym, right? And then you go back to your old self, and you go and say, wow, this is amazing. And then you're walking on the street, and somebody asks you, hey, how's it going? How's the gym? Because you used to love the gym, you used to go all the time there, and you have your friends, and you had all these amazing stories all the time. And imagine that person telling you, no, you know what? I realize that sometimes you have to choose between losing something else or losing yourself. So I chose to not lose myself. What? So you quit the gym? Yeah. These 3 weeks have been the best of my life. Of your life. Well, at least for the past 3 years, that gym wasn't for me. Imagine listening that. It's like you reverted to your old self because you got tired of the struggle that was making you better. And it's just interesting when you see it from a different lens, right? When you actually see it like that. Because when we're doing that thing, we're doing that poor decision making, we actually did not stop ourselves proceeding with a poor decision. We set ourselves up for failure. We don't see it ourselves, but when we see that example on others, you're like, oh, why would you do that, right? Imagine a caterpillar And a caterpillar goes and says, because the what people need to understand is that fear is tied to that decision making from a core perspective, because you're afraid of that change. And so we rationalize things. That's why a caterpillar doesn't do what I'll tell you right now, but hold on. But animals don't get that, or things, because I'll give another example with thing. But humans, we tend to rationalize. We tend to not realize the logical fallacies of statements. And then what happens is, imagine a caterpillar coming and saying, well, I want to, I need to become a chrysalis so that I can be my higher self and become a butterfly. Imagine a caterpillar asking another caterpillar, "Hey, are you turning into a chrysalis next week?" Yeah, well, you know what? No, I'm gonna stop, and I don't want to lose myself, so I want to continue being a caterpillar. Why? Because I don't want to be in the chrysalis. You're exposed to the elements. There are other predators that can come and eat you. So I don't want to go through that metamorphosis. I don't want to go through that change because I'm afraid. And because yes, I can be a butterfly, but I don't want to go through that. So I wrote here, the gym wasn't meaning that you lose yourself. It was helping you find a stronger, healthier version of yourself. Or in the case of the caterpillar, it's becoming your higher self. You always have to transform yourself. It's very good and comfortable to say that, oh well, I want my peace and my inner calm and everything quiet and relaxed. It's very comforting to do that. But you then don't go to the process of metamorphosis. You don't change. The transformation often feels like losing yourself, but it's not a loss, it's a gain. The real absurdity is clinging to what no longer serves you just to avoid discomfort, whether in the gym or in life. Growth requires embracing the chrysalis stage. Which then leads me to Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. Amazing book. It's just perfect, right? And I just want to share something real quick from this book, because it ties to that decision making and how you're supposed to become better at decision making, but you also have to develop self leadership, and in this case, courage, right? So I like how he puts it here. There is nothing we prize more than courage, yet nothing is in shorter supply. It remains so rare. Why? Because we're afraid, because it's easier not to get involved, because we have something else, or we're working on, or now is not a good time. I don't want to deal with this, right? So we'd rather stick with what's safe, calm, peaceful, inner peace, right? But courage is risk, it is sacrifice, commitment, perseverance, truth, determination. When you do the things others cannot or will not do, when you do the thing that people think you should not do or can do, otherwise it's not courage. You have to be braving something or someone, right? Then, to finalize, the call we fear. Somewhere inside we hear a voice. Our voice leads us in the direction of the person we wish to become. but it is up to us whether or not to follow. More times than not, we are pointed in a predictable, straightforward, and seemingly positive direction. However, occasionally we are directed down a different path entirely. The so-called the so-called hero's journey, the call to adventure, is followed in almost all cases by what? The refusal of the call. Because it's too hard. It's too scary. Because they must obviously have picked up the wrong person, not me. And lastly, what we are to do in this life comes from somewhere beyond us. It's bigger than us. We are called to be something or do something. But will we choose to accept this? Or will we run away? So, I got lots of resources on decision making. The journey is not easy. It has certainly not been for myself whatsoever. I've actually had to struggle a lot and go through a lot of perils and trials and tribulations. So it's not easy, but that's what you have to keep moving forward. Um, you have to become better at decision making. We always say that we're very good at decision making, but we're not. We're very prone to logical fallacies and not understanding the consequences of what we say or what we do. So we have to take an honest step in learning about decision making, learning about courage, how to develop courage. What is courage? What is fear? And once we're getting there on that path of personal leadership, then we will be able, like Spencer Johnson says here, to move ahead with a better decision. Down below, go to the link and call me. We can set something up that helps you take better decisions. I hope to see you there. Take care. Bye.